Hello, I'm Vera. Welcome to the Cancer Goddess. I'm super grateful that you came here to see what we're doing and to learn about how to heal from cancer that goes far beyond just cancer. It goes to mental, spiritual, physical, and that is why I'm super excited to bring you this incredible interview with yogi practitioner and activist and speaker Seane Corn, who I interviewed at the Berkshire Yoga Festival. And I discovered her over 20-something years ago when I first became a yoga teacher. You know why, guys? You're going to find out. So stay tuned and happy listening.
But these prayers are energy, where the power of love will always be greater than the power of fear. Knowing that our prayers are amplified through the millions and the millions of souls whom we are meeting in this moment in grace. Your prayers are essential. Your presence necessary. Your humanity, a blessing. So go in. Remember who you are. Remember who we are to each other. May all beings be free.
We're rolling? Yep. Okay. I'm here with, welcome to the Cancer Goddess. My name is Vera, and I'm here with Seane Corn. And I just want to introduce her by saying that she's been part of my journey for over 20 years. And when I first became a yoga teacher, when I was 24, when I had gone into addiction recovery, I've been in recovery for 21 years. I really saw her because she had my hair. And I'm a 4-time cancer survivor. And I don't have that hair anymore. So when I saw you, I said, she has my hair. Okay, well that's just the beginning, right? And over the years, I've seen you, followed you, and I've walked through 4 cancers. I've been sober for 21 years. I'm 45. Kids, married to a rabbi. You are amazing. Your message. So I want you to tell us how you became you.
First of all, you're amazing. And you may no longer have my hair, but man, do you have soul and depth of spirit and wisdom and experience. An experience I would rather not have personally, but man, would I love your wisdom. The wisdom that you glean from your experience. So thank you for sharing that and for being so vulnerable and honest, because I'm sure there's so many people who are watching this who walk this path, this hero's journey, with terror and yet also resilience. The fact that you have a family, you have love, you work, you're creating this here and now, when so many people at 4 times surviving are thinking about the end. You just keep creating these beginnings. And so this is your remarkable example. And thank you for asking me to share with you in this way how I became who I am. I don't know how to answer that particular question. I know that I'm very dedicated to yoga, and that
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay. You grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just hold your head.
Yeah.
Okay. And I sense the accent. I went to high school in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, LaGuardia. And then so what brought you into this path? I want to know little baby Seane
Little baby Seane?
Yeah, to like where Seane, started coming on that yoga path, because we all have our evolution into that enlightenment and that awareness. And then how did that happen for you?
Well, little baby Seane, little baby corn. I moved away from New Jersey at 17 and I moved to New York City. Yeah. And I was living on Avenue B between 12th and 13th. And I worked in a little cafe called Life Cafe on 10th and Avenue B, which was owned by Sharon Gannon and David Life. Yeah. They went on to open Jivamukta Yoga. And right now, Jules, who is the nephew of David Life, who I've known since he was a little baby, is teaching class. And so I was really blessed and incredibly fortunate to have worked in a place back in the 80s where yoga was just coming alive in that cafe. And my introduction to it at first was through diet. It was David and Sharon became vegan. They were removing items off the menu that were dairy and meat based. I was getting exposed to just a more conscious lifestyle. It seemed like everybody in the cafe was either becoming vegan or doing heroin. It was like one or the other.
One or the other was Avenue B.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah. And I was fortunate that I leaned towards yoga. Yoga didn't hit for me though. I liked it. It was fun. But it didn't grab me until, let's see, I was 18, 19, 20, maybe 23. And I was practicing yoga at the Integral Yoga Studio in New York City. And something moved me in that experience where there was a familiarity in my body, different than the other practices that were so physical. There was something else that was happening. And I couldn't get a sense of it. And I remember this day very clearly because I left the class, was walking down the street, and was trying to identify this feeling in my body. And I realized I was happy, really genuinely happy. And it was a sensation. It wasn't an attitude. It was a sensation. It felt sparkly and alive. And all I kept thinking was like, that couldn't have been the yoga. And sure enough, it was the yoga.
It was the yoga. How old were you at that point?
Probably 22 or 23.
Yeah.
And
that was the spark.
And then I moved to Los Angeles, and still yoga hadn't fully grabbed me.
Yeah.
And I had an experience in LA.
So you didn't go to college?
No, I didn't go to college.
Rebel, love that.
Yeah, I didn't go to college. I barely graduated high school.
And I just want to say, because I grew up in New York City as well, and I moved there when I was 14. And Avenue A, B, C, you just did not go down there.
Yeah.
You did not go.
It was rough.
You didn't go to Thompson Square Park. It was all junkies. And I can imagine what it was like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was wild, and it was wonderful.
Yes.
And
that's the days of like Madonna being there and stuff.
Yeah. And it's like
Sidetrack.
it was an incredibly joyful time.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful
and
for all of it.
Best Scott. And, I mean, really. Okay, so then why did you leave that energy to go to LA? Very different energy.
I was sitting in Central Park and getting stoned, and I was listening to Going to California by Led Zeppelin.
Are we going to California?
Yep.
No.
There's a line that says, someone told me there's a girl out there with love in her heart and flowers in her hair. And because I was high, all I kept thinking was, that's me. I'm the children of the sun. I'm the girl with flowers in the hair. And like, I have to go to California. I think they were talking about San Francisco, but I went to LA, and I ended up getting a job as a receptionist in a yoga studio called Yoga Works because I couldn't afford classes.
That's a corporate
Not
studio.
Anymore.
Oh,
Back,
it was, right?
It was, but before it was corporate, it was just one studio owned by the incredible Matthias Ratti and Chuck Miller.
It's so funny because where I did my teacher training, I'm 500 hours, but the studio sold it to Yoga Works.
Yeah. It
so
became
they're big now. They're super big.
Not anymore. Now, since the pandemic, they're kind of online only.
Yeah.
Sadly, but
Yeah.
I went to Yoga Works, and
just based on the song about flowers in the hair.
I went to California, and then I went to the Self-Realization Fellowship. There's a park, and when I was in the park, I met this woman, and I asked her if she knew of a good yoga studio, and she said, "Well, there's this place on Montana, it's a street, and called Yoga Works." So I remember driving down Montana, looking up, and because she said it was on the second floor, and I was like, "Oh, there it is." And had I had known that when I turned into that driveway to go up the drive, I was driving into my destiny. Wow. I had no idea. You can't know that in that moment.
That's God.
I got up there, and I was a little intimidated because the yoga scene in New York was very different than the yoga scene in LA.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what was it like?
It was just different. I can't. It was intimidating.
Yeah. Interesting.
It was leggings and sports bras, and no one was wearing underwear underneath their leggings. I could tell, and I was like, in New York, we were wearing sweatpants and t-shirts.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
I didn't know. And people had abs and muscles.
Oh,
it was
my God.
very different.
Yes.
And
it's more physical,
and
and the revelation of the physical body rather than the mental body.
And I
the
saw
mental mind, mindfulness.
I saw Mati, who passed away a couple of years ago, with her long braids and the most vibrant teal eyes and armpit hair down to here.
Yes.
And I didn't know she was the owner of the studio, and I was so drawn to her. And I started to take class, but I couldn't afford the classes. They were just too expensive.
Yeah.
And so I talked to them about doing exchange. From exchange work, meaning I stuffed envelopes, they gave me a free class, that kind of thing. Then they gave me a job working behind the desk. And then Mati talked me into doing a teacher's training. And I started taking her class and Brian Kest's class and all the classes at Yoga Works. And then I did my first teacher's training while I was working behind the desk. And it really evolved from there. I never thought that this would be a career.
But what spoke to you in that moment in the classes, like that made you turn that new direction?
I mean, you have 5 weeks for me to answer that question. What I can tell you, each class peeled a layer back. I felt better. I felt happier. I felt cleaner. I felt more connected. But to what I didn't know, I wanted God in my life, but I had a real complicated relationship with God as I understood it to be from my upbringing.
Yeah.
And I resisted any rhetoric around spirit. I resisted these messages. And even in yoga class, once God came up, I could feel my body shut down. And then one day I was in a yoga practice. I had this experience where the teacher was just like prattling on about something, but all this emotion came up that had never happened before.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand what was happening in my body. And I left the room because I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And I went into the bathroom and cried and cried and cried. And I howling, crying, like primal. And I've never experienced that. I was very freaked out. Why? Nothing was wrong. Nothing was wrong in my life. And when it was over, I felt somewhat better. And I went back into the class and I got into it was pigeon pose. I got into pigeon on the other side.
That catharsis was, we released endorphins and then you came back and did pigeon.
And the same thing happened.
Yeah.
And I kept telling myself, don't leave the room, stay in it, breathe. And I had, I started having these flashbacks of a trauma that I had experienced as a child, and I never had that before. And while this is happening and I'm feeling myself wanting to run, I kept breathing because the teacher was kept talking about the mind-body connection and that trauma lives in your body. He having no idea what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing it all and taking it in and trusting the words, and my body released this energy.
Wow.
And I, again, howled in public, in the public class, just cried. Like, it felt like that. But I sat up afterwards when he led us through meditation, and I heard everything in a very different way. Every word of spirit landed in my consciousness as if it was whispered into my soul, a language I already knew. And I felt a connection with God as I understood it to be, which is love. And that was my turning point moment. I realized it had taken 8 years of asana, of chipping away at the layers of tension that I had accumulated.
It was 8 years from the beginning?
Yeah, about 8 years before this moment.
So you were in your late 20s then?
I was probably 26.
Okay.
Yeah, when it happened.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and so it floored me, the depths of what I was experiencing in myself. And from there, again, a door opened, another door opened, another door opened. So it wasn't one moment. It's a series of moments. And everything that happened in those 8 years prior was also powerful.
Yeah,
I couldn't have known what was to come had I not gone through what I went through.
Of course.
I mean, I vomited my very first yoga class. I was so toxic inside my body. And so I don't discount those years prior as being somehow inadequate
Right.
or any less spiritual.
Right.
I was being like spiritually groomed, if you will. I was being prepped. My body, it was like spirit was like, come on, you know, trust me, stay with it, breathe. And my life changed.
In the rooms of recovery, they say it's the gift of desperation.
Yeah.
To want to surrender.
Yeah.
So you got to your place of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And then tell me then, how did you jumpstart into your path of abundance of being a yoga teacher? And
I could have never seen this coming.
really?
No.
You didn't have an ambition and foresight to be who you are?
No, not until I got into it. For me, when my two teachers, Brian and Matzi, both said, you would make an amazing yoga teacher. But my feeling was there was no evidence to support that, except for being strong and flexible. And strong and flexible is not what makes a good yoga teacher.
No.
I've met incredibly profoundly students who can really get into their body, who don't know how to communicate, and I've met incredible facilitators who can barely touch their toes, but that it's a different skill. And so I was very resistant. And I remember Matzi said to me, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to teach. Just do it to learn more about the practice. And I thought, okay, that sounds like a good idea. It's like the grand lie, and I got through my very first yoga teacher's training without ever teaching. Everyone in the room is breaking up into quads and triads and, teaching off of each other. I loved yoga so much, but I had a profound fear of expressing it because I felt like any word that I used would be inadequate. And I didn't want to ruin this thing that was so meaningful to me with my immaturity. And I also was really afraid of public speaking. And so I made myself invisible, and I never actually taught. And I didn't teach until I got through an advanced teacher's training, like my final exam. I had to teach in front of the class one pose, and I choked. I choked badly because I'd never practiced it before. But I'll never forget that day because I went up to the front of the class. I was given one pose to teach. I blanked out. 3 times I tried, and each time lost my words, everything. Everything I was afraid would happen, happened. And at that time, we were taught, the mat was like this, and everybody's mats were facing the front mat, and you mirrored what they were doing. And I looked at the teacher, and I said, can I do something different? And at this point, she's just like, well, pretty much, why not? And I got off this mat, and I walked into the room, and the moment no one was looking at me, and I was able to connect with the energy, not the personalities, but the energy, all of a sudden it started to come. And I knew it in that moment. In that moment, I thought, I'm a teacher. It was effortless, the words. But I knew that because I had a lot of fear around public speaking and a lot of insecurity, that for me to be effective, I needed to be a good teacher. And so I did 5 200-hour trainings back to back. And
wait, 5?
5
Wow.
200-hour teachers training back to back.
That's
while simultaneously teaching. I started teaching right away.
Whoa.
And then continued taking trainings because.
How'd you fund it?
Well, because I worked at YogaWorks.
Oh, so you just go keep teaching, taking their trainings?
They would let me take any training I wanted. My first teacher's training, though, was a gift from my parents. It was $600.
Oh, my God.
And I remember calling my parents and saying to them, I really wanted to do it. I couldn't afford it. And my parents said, well, why don't you let us get that for you for your birthday? Oh. And I said, okay, that seems like a good idea. And my dad used to say it was the best $600 he ever spent in his entire life. And once I got into the room, I have a very solid work ethic.
Yeah. And
it might have to do with growing up in New Jersey. And I often think that my career was built on commitment to service and an uncompromised work ethic. I never missed a class. I showed up on time. I remembered names. I was committed to my students. And I didn't move my schedule all over the place. And I approached teaching yoga like I would any real job. And because of that, I developed a following. People knew. They didn't have to call the studio to say, is Seane going to be there at 5:30? I was always there at 5:30.
How many times a week did you teach?
I started my first 4 months. I was 3 days a week at YogaWorks. And then I did other little schools and gyms and things like that, privates. Then I went to 6 days a week and then 12 days a week. I did, at my peak in LA, I did 12 public classes a week and 12 privates a week.
How did you get that energy to keep going and giving? And
I had really good stamina.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's stamina. And people would often say to me, they'd ask me like, how do I get your career? And I think, I'm not sure you would want it, because it's sacrifice and compromise and a level of stamina that's not really sustainable. I happen to have I'm older now, but I had a level of stamina that it didn't burn me out. But I can understand how most people would get burnt out. And also, you can't have a balanced family life. I miss holidays, things that other people, it's very meaningful to them.
right.
I sacrificed that so that I could be here.
Yeah.
And
Your traction was growing. You were getting known, right,
Yeah.
in the yoga LA community.
Yeah.
And then how did that emerge to larger communities?
Brian Kest asked
This
me.
is before social media.
Yeah, this is before social
You had
media.
to do it old school style.
There's a few things. One, Yoga Journal magazine took a liking to me. And
how did that happen? Just through word of mouth, kind of in the circles of yoga.
I'm trying to get the right order of things. I did a series of videos for Brian Kest. I was on the cover of Eric Schiffman's book. And I did something else came my way. I don't remember what it was, but Yoga Journal asked me to do like this. I started having a popular LA following. Yoga Journal, I think they put me on their cover first.
Yeah.
The worst cover Yoga Journal has ever done. They would say that because I was in a headstand facing the camera with a knee brace on.
Oh my
in
God.
a horrible outfit. And going upside down, it's like my face is bright red, my vein is sticking out.
They didn't see your amazing hair, too.
It was the worst cover. And the title was Ouch.
Put that in the podcast.
It's a lime green background. It's a really bad cover. And they would admit to it. But they put me on the cover, and then they invited me to my first little mini conference. And then Brian Kest asked me to come assist him on the road. And one day with Brian, we were walking to class. He had 2 classes on a Saturday. And as we get to the school, he looks at me and says, "You're going to teach this class." And I said, "No, I am not teaching this class." And he said, "Absolutely you are." And I said, "Brian, these people paid for you. They don't want like me all fuzzy headed coming into this space and throwing down some yoga." And he said, "Just be brilliant." And I was so scared. And so I took a deep breath, fluffed up my hair, and I taught the hell out of that class. And what happened afterwards is the person that had hired Brian asked if I would come back and lead my own workshop. And that's where that began. And then it's like one thing after another.
It snowballed.
And I said yes to everything. I said yes to everything. Even when I was first starting as a yoga teacher, if someone wanted me to teach a mommy and me class, yes. A kids class, which it was the worst.
Yeah,
I was the worst.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I just I would always think to myself, if I say no to this opportunity, I will continue to live my life in fear.
Right.
Even if I absolutely mess up, I have to say yes to this and see what reveals itself. And my kind of career continues to be like that. But that's really how it all evolved.
So that's a good message for burgeoning yoga teachers, that it's not just about talent, it's about grit and dedication. And you're an emblem of that experience. So
thank you.
And then, so now you're at this different place in your life
Yes.
that you're very, very well known. Kirpalo loves you to death, and you've written books, right?
Yeah.
And so now that you've reached this level of attainment and fame and helping so many people, where are you at in your teaching? And I just took your class. Sorry, there's a whole. Hi,
Hi.
guys. That's all right. These are the Berkshire Yoga.
Hi.
I was just in your class, and the wisdom, and I'm a kind of wisdom snob. Like I know I kind of look on the younger side, but I've lived like 9 lives, and um, you really, really spoke to me, and of course, the whole room was filled with people you spoke to. But how do you get that deep wisdom that you? I mean, I know through age, but what has been profound shifts for you? I mean, you really focus on God and spirituality, and you focus on creating love, especially in all this disharmony right now in our culture. And you referenced the protests, and you referenced the pain and suffering of people all around the world and young children, and you get very deep with your practice, and then you put somebody in like downward facing dog, and so like it's a nuanced symphony that you do. And I'm sure this is from your years and years of teaching, but it is a real gift. So how did you develop that gift?
Practice. I'm committed to the practice of yoga. This is an example of how I practice, what goes on through me. Um, I don't know. When I finally got out of my own way many, many years ago, the words came. And my capacity for articulation. But I had to learn certain skills. I knew my fear of public speaking was going to get in the way of me being in service. So I started taking lessons in phonetics to learn how to enunciate so that my accent is so strong that I could be heard and that I would be able to command a space that sounded informed and that I didn't want to lose my accent. I just wanted to learn how to enunciate. And so I took phonetic lessons, read books on public speaking, and again, just kept going towards my fears, because I only ever wanted one thing, and that was to serve and be authentic in that service and take risks. Over the years, especially now, I'm 58 years old, my commitment is the reason I say the things that I say in a room is because I can. And what I mean by that is I've built enough cachet and trust within the yoga world that I can take risks and say things that might be triggering to people, that might be confrontational, that might cause some people, to be heard in adulation and other people to feel resistant. I do that because I can take the hit, whereas younger teachers might not be able to.
Yeah.
They don't have the capacity, the authority, the words.
That's right.
And therefore, I feel a responsibility that I have to model what it looks like, provide the context on how to do it,
Right.
and people can then say, well, Seane did it.
Yeah.
If Seane did it, maybe it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And so I feel that it's very purposeful what I do, because I'm in a position of mentorship at this point, of leadership. The younger students are paying attention, the younger teachers are paying attention, and I want to do what's authentic to me, but also model back that if it's in their heart to do it, there's space for it. People used to tell me back in the day not to talk about God in a yoga class. I made an entire career out of talking about God. People used to tell me not to talk about politics. I created an entire nonprofit, Off the Mat into the World, in order to teach people how to engage in inside out social change. And so I don't believe that ceiling that keeps getting presented to me, that, you have to be precious with the word of yoga. It's inclusive, it's powerful, it's strong, it is politics, it is racism, it is sexism, it is disability rights. It's everywhere where there's separation, there must be yoga. And so my commitment, yoga is not racist, yoga is not sexist. Yoga is about racial rights. It's about human rights. It's about trans rights. It's about animal rights. And so anywhere where there's a divide, we bring yoga. And again, I choose to model that for the world in which I'm a part of, and hopefully create space and a language for other young teachers to feel brave enough to do it themselves.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I just want to say you're a gift. I'm grateful the universe has put you here in my life and to many, 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 many lives. And we are here for only a little bit of time. It's a very vast universe of time. Billions of years of evolution. So I'm just grateful for this moment. As we all returned to dust. And you're doing God's work.
Thank you. As are you. As are you. And I wish you continued good health and strength and commitment for yourself and for your family, and for you to keep sharing with as much perseverance and commitment with the folks around you. I know that there's a lot of people who are challenged and who are suffering and who are afraid, who look to you for inspiration and for support. So thank you. Keep speaking out and up, and stay healthy. Yeah. Yeah.
And wait, now how can people find you? I mean, you're pretty easy to find.
Yeah, SeaneCorn.com.
Okay. And then do you have things you produce or sell or whatever you want to promote?
I have a book, Revolution of the Soul. You can check that out. And I have an online way if you want to come take classes with me live online every Tuesday. I have over 800 classes of replay, a ton of content. And so you can find it all at SeaneCorn.com.
Thank you, Seane, for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you for asking me to share my story. I appreciate that. Yeah.
This circle is the cauldron. Your breath is the prayers. My voice is the invocation. The practice becomes alchemical in that regard. Magic is alchemical. Every day when you get on your yoga mat, whether your teacher is praying or not, know what you're doing. Know that when your feet come together and your palms come into prayer, you can look around the room and think, you all think they're just moving and breathing? We're practicing magic. It's amazing that we get to do this work together. I don't know if it's karma, circumstance, or just dumb luck, but something brought each and every one of us onto a yoga mat at some point in our life. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was just wanting to get healthy. Maybe it was just a friend who just dragged you along and swore it was going to change your life. And maybe it took a day, maybe it took a year. But there was that one breath, that one word, that one posture that landed in your soul and spoke a truth that was so familiar, that was so profound, that your soul remembered in a split moment who you actually were and are. How blessed are we? And yes, the practice is challenging. And we will confront aspects of our own humanity that will make us so incredibly uncomfortable, but it's not a punishment, it is a privilege. It is only in the recognition that we can begin the work of transformation. And most folks upon this planet will choose not to open their eyes and see, not just their own shadow, but their own light. And if we cannot bear witness to the power of our own illumination, how can we stand in the presence of someone else's? You have one hand on your heart center. That represents love and compassion and altruism. Your other hand is on your third chakra, which represents truth. Now, my understanding of God, it's not religious. It's deeply spiritual. It's not religious. My understanding of God, how I define it, it is truth and it is love. You see, everything you need to know, the answers to all of your prayers, the God in which you seek, is already beneath your hands. It's already within you. Our work is to awaken to that knowing, is to remember who we are, is to peel back the layers of illusion is to recommit and reconnect with our authentic self and open ourselves to the power of this grace. There's no true teacher other than the one that's beating and within your own body, within your own heart. We do our deep inner work and serve each other to move into wholeness. Ourselves a moment just to be in the presence of this powerful earth beneath you in all its purity, creativity, power. We take a moment to meditate on what is happening in our nation and in our world right now. There is pain and there is suffering.
Thank you for listening to The Cancer Goddess and my interview with Seane Corn, yogi extraordinaire, speaker, activist. If you want more programming just like this, please subscribe, and it really helps our nonprofit, Breast Cancer Goddess. Thank you so much. Love, light, and health. Vera.
And people can then say, well, Seane did it.
Yeah.
So if Seane did it,
Yeah,
maybe it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
feel that it's very purposeful what I do, because I'm in a position of mentorship at this point, of leadership. The younger students are paying attention, the younger teachers are paying attention. And I want to do what's authentic to me, but also model back that if it's in their heart to do it, there's space for it. People used to tell me back in the day not to talk about God in a yoga class.
Oh.
I made an entire career out of talking about God. People used to tell me not to talk about politics. I created an entire nonprofit, Off the Mat into the World, in order to teach people how to engage in inside out social change. And so I don't believe that ceiling that keeps getting presented to me, that, you have to be precious with the word of yoga. It's inclusive, it's powerful, it's strong, it is politics, it is racism, it is sexism, it is disability rights. It's everywhere where there's separation, there must be yoga. And so my commitment, yoga is not racist, yoga is not sexist, yoga is about racist, it's about racial rights, it's about human rights, it's about trans rights, it's about animal rights. And so anywhere where there's a divide, we bring yoga. And again, I choose to model that for the world in which I'm a part of, and hopefully create space and a language for other young teachers to feel brave enough to do it themselves.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I just want to say you're a gift. I'm grateful the universe has put you here in my life, and to many, 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 many lives. And we are here for only a little bit of time. It's a very vast universe of time, billions of years of evolution. So I'm just grateful for this moment. As we all returned to dust. And you're doing God's work.
Thank you. As are you. As are you. And I wish you continued good health and strength and commitment for yourself and for your family, and for you to keep sharing with as much perseverance and commitment with the folks around you. I know that there's a lot of people who are challenged and who are suffering and who are afraid, who look to you for inspiration and for support. So thank you. Keep speaking out and up, and stay healthy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And wait, now how can people find you? I mean, you're pretty easy to find.
Yeah, SeaneCorn.com.
Okay. And then do you have things you produce or sell or whatever you want to promote?
I have a book, Revolution of the Soul. You can check that out. And I have an online way if you want to come take classes with me live online every Tuesday. I have over 800 classes of replay, a ton of content. And so you can find it all at SeaneCorn.com.
Thank you, Seane, for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you for asking me to share my story. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Same thing, bring your arms out to the sides and hold on to the person right next to you. May they live in harmony with themselves and this planet. May they love bigger than they ever imagined possible. Breathe.